Hey guys, my name is Kim. Welcome to my channel. Today I thought I would do my makeup and talk about, I suppose this is the show that essentially helped me through lockdown, helped me through, dare I say, all of 2020, or at least most of 2020, and that is Taskmaster. So Taskmaster is a show created by Alex Horne. He got the idea from both a combination of Crystal Maze and the work he did on Big Brother. So in 2009 he got 20 or so comedians to do all these random tasks. They basically spent the majority of 2009 doing all these tasks, documenting their results and everything like that. Then in the 2010 Edinburgh Festival Fringe, I don't know why I struggle to say that name, they presented their ideas, or Alex Horne rather compiled all of their results and it was shown at the gig. This gained so much popularity that they did another stage show a year later, this time with 10 comedians instead of 20. So time goes on. Alex Horne tried to pitch this idea to first he recruited the production company Avalon to help produce the show, and then he pitched it to several networks. It was eventually picked up by Dave, which is a channel in the UK. Then a pilot of the show aired in, I believe it was September 2014. And then finally in July 2015, Series 1 officially aired. So Taskmaster was on Channel Dave until about November 2019 when it moved over to Channel 4. Where they have agreed to do another, I believe it was 6 series over the next 3 years. So I guess we'll have to wait and see at the end of the year 2022 to see if they decide to, restart the contract or extend the contract, if you will. Alex Horne has said that they have plenty of ideas, so not to worry. Because if it was up to them, they could just keep going, he reckons. He doesn't see the show, in terms of the ideas they have for tasks, he doesn't see the show ending anytime soon for that reason. Okay, anyway, so the show entails 5 comedians or TV personalities that they get each series. They complete a variety of random tasks, ranging from eating the most watermelon in 60 seconds, bringing a board game to life, bringing a video game to life, various art tasks. For example, there was one art task where they had to create a caricature of a person sitting behind the curtain. They weren't allowed to look at the person. They could only ask yes or no questions to the person to try and determine what they look like. They had to push a watermelon up a slide into a caravan using only breadsticks. Some of them are so absolutely random, I just don't see them not coming up with ideas anytime soon. In fact, Tim Key, who was in Series 1, he and Alex Horne are very good friends, and after his stint on the show, he actually works behind the scenes on the show, helping Alex come up with ideas for tasks. So the tasks that these comedians do, they're done ahead of time. So when we watch the episode, it almost kind of looks a bit like a panel talk show. We see the 5 comedians, we see Alex Horne and Greg Davies. Greg Davies is technically the host of the show. He is the Taskmaster, and it's always his call. He judges how well everyone does on the tasks and gives them points 1 to 5. And what we see is footage of that would have been taken several months ago when these comedians actually performed the tasks. And I read recently, Alex Horne said the comedians aren't allowed to watch the footage or anything before the panel show because they wanted all their reactions to be genuine. They also don't tell them about anything that went wrong or any mistakes they made. They all learn that at the time of the panel show, which often happens months later, because they want to make sure that all comedians are done. And it's quite interesting watching all the footage. For example, Series 7, Kerry Godliman, I believe she filmed her tasks at a different time, because the task where they had to draw the biggest and best circle it was the middle of winter and it was snowing. Whereas everyone else, I think they did most of their filming during warmer weather. Because obviously they need to fit her, because these people, they are, like Kerry Godliman, for example, she's got a pretty busy career in TV. So she would obviously, they would have really had to have worked around the schedules of some of these people. I don't know what I'm doing with my eye makeup. We're just gonna go messy glam rock, I suppose. The lighting in here is not good. So as well as the pre-film tasks, at the start of each show they do a prize task in where each contestant brings in something from home that fits the topic of the prize task. For example, it could be the most surprisingly beautiful thing, the most surprisingly expensive thing, the most defunct thing, which I thought was interesting. Like if for whatever reason I was ever a contestant on a show like Taskmaster and I had to bring in the most defunct thing, I actually have the perfect thing, I'm just gonna get it. So this is something I got mainly as a prop for a cosplay, and it's an analog stopwatch. Now it's defunct in 3 ways. The first way being doesn't work, the battery in it is dead. Number 2, nobody uses analog stopwatches anymore. And number 3, it was made in the USSR, which hasn't been around for 30 years. So there you go. I don't know if I would, if that means I would win because it's defunct in more ways than one. But it's fun to think about. I like thinking about like what I would bring in for prize tasks and things like that. Yeah, I think it'd be cool having like a Taskmaster theme party. Anyway, as well as the prize task, at the end of each episode, after they've finished showing the tasks and how everyone did, there's actually a live studio task that they do in front of the audience. They do it on stage. I'm trying to think of a few examples of good ones. In series 1, they had some good ones. They were wearing boxing gloves, had a massive bowl of Smarties in front of them. And keeping the boxing gloves on at all time, they had to get as many blue, they had another bowl, they had to get as many blue Smarties into this bowl as possible, and they would have a deduction for every non-blue one in it. So that's something you could probably do at a party, I think, if you've got boxing gloves or something that would, you know, stop people from using their fingers. Yeah, this eye makeup is just turning into shit, basically. So after they do the live task, they then calculate the points, and whichever comedian has the most points at the end of the episode, they win all the items from the prize task category at the start of the episode. They get to take all those home. Then in the very last episode of each series, because they keep a running total of all the points gathered from episode 1 right until the last episode, and then they choose an overall winner, the person who has actually won that whole series. And after the first 5 seasons, they actually did Champion of Champions, where they got the winners of the first 5 series to compete, which I loved. I recently found out that it was actually announced in December 2020. I had no idea. I just assumed it wasn't happening. But apparently, Alex Horne did announce that Champion of Champions 2, so the winners of series 6 to 10 are going to be competing in Champion of Champions 2. I don't know why I'm finding it so hard to say that. Champion of Champions 2, which is going to air sometime this year. So I'm just so thrilled that I'm just like, well, I don't know what we did to deserve, you know, gosh, well, season 11 just finished this year. We're going to get season 12 this year as well, plus Champion of Champions 2. So we've pretty much got, you know, like they're just giving us so much. Some of my favorite moments from the show, it's going to be so hard to summarize, because I mean, we are 11 seasons in and two specials in, I believe. We had Champion of Champions and also the New Year's Eve special. There are so many moments to go over. The infamous potato gate of series 2, where they had to get a potato into a hole, sort of like a mini golf course. So it's a ring of red green with a golf hole in the middle, and you had to get the potato into the hole. You weren't allowed to step on the green. Sorry, you weren't allowed to step on the red green. And so Joe Wilkinson comes along and he just pings it in straight away. It took him 14 seconds.
But if I don't get it... There we go.
First throw, nails it, gets it in. Everyone's like, oh my God, it's epic. And then they replay the footage only to see that about 1 to 2 centimeters of his toe was actually on the green when he committed himself to the throw, thus disqualifying him. So he went from 5, he would have won that task with 5 points and just went back way down to 0. It was a heartbreaker, really. I personally, I think he should have gotten it, because Greg actually allowed the other 4 contestants to do a vote on whether or not he should get the full 5 points, and both Richard Osman and Catherine Ryan, they both put their hands up to say yes, he deserves the full marks. And Doc Brown and John Richardson were like, no. You know, he stepped on the red green, he shouldn't get it. I mean, Joe did so poorly. In fact, I don't think he even came first in anything. I'm not too sure about that. I'll need to rewatch. I feel like I've watched season 2 the most, and I cannot remember if he came first in anything. He did very poorly, and he came last. That I'm certain of. In his series, there was there have been questions about whether they do a loser of losers, and they get the people who came last instead of first, and get all them to compete, which I think would be hilarious. Because one of my favourite contestants is also Nish Kumar, who was in Series 5. And people who are even bigger fans of the show than I am, they have created spreadsheets and formulae, and just they've put in tons of work to confirm whether or not... Because Series 1 had 6 episodes, and then Series 2... and 3 had 5 episodes, then 4 and 5 had 8 episodes, and then from Series 6 onwards there were 10 episodes. So people actually worked out Nish's average score per episode, and were like, okay, if Series 5 had 10 episodes and not 8, he still would have come last. This is what his point score would have been. People have made like spreadsheets and all this sorts of stuff showing that even if you had given Nish 2 episodes and he gave it his all, he still would be last out of every single Taskmaster contestant there is, basically.
Well, there's one person left. It's Nish.
It's last place Kumar. You know what they say, Gregory? Let's save the best till Nish.
Even though Nish did come first in a couple of tasks, which I thought was interesting. Even though he came first a couple of tasks, he still was last and still did worse than Joe Wilkinson. Stop it. I don't know what's happening. That sounds like a freaking possum in my wall. Who are some of my other favourite contestants? Bob Mortimer's always good, but I don't know, I just have like one favourite. I always feel like if I have more than one favourite per series, I'm like, you know, it's like I'm cheating on them or something. So having said that though, I did really like, in series 9, I really liked both Rose Matafeo and Joe Brand for very different reasons. I loved how competitive Rose Matafeo was, and I really liked how they had... I really like it when they have international comedians as well. I mean, Series 2, they had Catherine Ryan, who is Canadian born but resides in England. And then I think the next time we had someone who was outside of Europe and Britain was Rose Matafari in Series 9, I think. And then in Series 11 we had Sarah Kendall. So I was really excited because, you know, fellow Australian, always good to see them in a in you know, a show that's a favourite of mine that's made and set in the UK. Or just another country in general. I always like seeing Australians doing stuff internationally, I don't know why. One of my favourite tasks completed by Nish with the help of Mark Watson. I forgot to add that sometimes there are team tasks. They generally split they split the 5 into a team of 3 and a team of 2. And in Nish's series, he was paired up with Mark Watson. And one of the final group tasks they did, or team tasks they did, they had to, I believe they only had about, it was either 5 or 10 minutes to talk to a woman that they'd never met before, and then they had half an hour to write a song about her. Oh, the song that Mark and Nish did was just fantastic. You can actually watch it here on YouTube if you just look up Nish Kumar's best Taskmaster moments. You'll see that song. I'm making a mess of this. Some of my favourite tasks as well. I loved the bringing a video game to life. They all did exceptionally well, I thought. It was one of those tasks where they were really good. Was this the task where Greg Davies was actually really torn because he felt like everyone did a really good job and he didn't know how to score it? I can't even remember how he scored that one because everyone did a fantastic job. Jessica Knappett brought Mario Kart to life, and her and Alex dressed as Mario and Luigi, and they drove around a makeshift race course outside the Taskmaster house in golf buggies. And I thought that was amazing. I'm like, that just looked so fun. But one thing that did annoy me, but it was okay because both teams got the same points in the end, was Series 9 when they had to bring a board game to life. That was a group task. So you had Rose, Katie and Ed. They brought Buckaroo to life. And I thought they did a fantastic job. And then they're watching the footage in the studio and Greg is like, you know, he's giving his opinion on it, and he says how, oh, you know, like Buckaroo like had a spring system. I'm just surprised you guys didn't use a spring system. And then they're like, well, the task was to bring the game to life. You know, we don't need a spring system when Ed is a spring system. Ed was the donkey. And Katie and Rose took in turns balancing items on him until he eventually bucked them off. And, you know, like Greg was just being a bit of a dick. And I mean, I suppose that's his job. Like, you wonder if he genuinely, you know, was backing up his own thoughts on it, or if he was just saying it just to get them riled up.
Well, the original had 3 sensitivity levels that were adjustable via a switch under the saddle. And
Thank you!
Yeah, there was nothing like that.
I've got 3 sensitivity levels. And I'll be honest, I'm on my top fucking one right now.
Because then, you know, it shows Joe Brand and David Baddiel bringing Operation to life. And it's like, if I'm surprised Ed didn't pipe up and say, because Greg said that they did a really good job and everything. I'm surprised Ed didn't pipe up and say something like, oh, well, like, they didn't really bring it to life because Joe didn't really carve David Baddiel's body open and harvest his organs. You know, they just had stuff placed on his chest and she just picked them off with tongs. But no, he ended up giving both teams 3 points each, I think. So at least they scored the same, although I do think that the team of 3 went to a lot more trouble than the team of 2. But that's just my opinion. But at the same time, I love Jo Brand, and she, in my opinion, she can't do anything wrong. Well, that's better. I should have turned that light on before. I just got up to get my mascara and decided to turn on the lights further back, and that, I feel like I can see my makeup a lot better now. What a difference just one extra light bulb makes. Another group task that I really enjoyed, I think was the first group task of Series 9. So it's David and Joe, and they basically just had to, it was one of those, it was a bit like a choose your own adventure book, except it was sort of brought to life, because the first task that they opened, it said go to the kitchen or go to the shed. And that just sort of starts the whole thing, and you can end up in a loop like what the team of 3 did, and they had to do certain things again. And there's like a scene where they had to make a sandwich together and eat it, or have at least one bite of the sandwich, and they're just taking their time. Joe's got the fridge open and she says to David, like, oh, do you want artichokes in your sandwich? And all this stuff. And so he like microwaves the butter to soften it and everything, like to spread it onto the sandwich, and they take their time. It happens later that David said that he forgot they were on the clock. That's why he was just because they both take a bite out of the sandwich. They forget that they only had to take one bite. They didn't have to finish it, but they enjoyed the sandwich so much that they were like, oh, you know, like, let's just eat the whole thing. And David's like, you know what would be fantastic right now? A cup of tea. And Joe's like, oh, I'll pop the kettle on. And then they're talking about their favourite types of tea and everything. Like, I think David says something about Earl Grey and... And you know, like it's like the whole point of the task is that the fastest one wins, and then it has them finally they finish the sandwich and they go to the next part of the task, which was in the lab, and they still have their cups of tea with them, and I'm just dying laughing when I watch this for the first time. So it gets to the end of, you know, their version of the task before they went on to the team of 3, and and David's like, you know what, I completely forgot we were against the clock.
Can I just tell you something? I don't think I realised we were doing it against the clock.
I did know we were doing it against the clock, and I didn't give a fuck.
Which has just been like her whole attitude towards the show, which I love. I just adore her dry humour and her dry personality and her like couldn't care less attitude about anything and everything. It's oddly refreshing considering so many people on the show are really competitive. Another part of the show that I like is that I really like seeing people's thought processes and seeing the way people think outside the box. It's lateral thinking, which, I don't know, it's just fantastic to see how people interpret the tasks differently, and they try to, you know, they read between the lines, if you will, with the task. So, for example, I thought it was absolute genius when Hugh Dennis from series 4, the task I talked about earlier, they had to do a caricature of a woman behind a curtain, and it said you must not look at the woman. You can only ask her yes or no questions. So Hugh says, his first question is, after reading the task, he says, can I leave the caravan? And he leaves the caravan to get a mirror. So he positions the mirror where the mystery woman is, that they have to make the caricature of, and he lifts up the curtain and looks in the mirror, and he says, I'm not looking at you, I'm looking at your reflection. So it's interesting how people interpret the English language in this show. Now the reason why he didn't do so well is because even though he'd looked at this woman in the mirror and knew exactly what she looked like, his drawing was so terrible that I think he still came last. So it was sort of all for nothing in the end. Another one that was absolute genius was series 7. Oh god, my lashes are looking crazy. I haven't worn these style lashes in a long time. They have a really thick band. I'm not used to it, and the band doesn't want to stay down. Been wearing mainly lashes with a clear band that, in my opinion, are a lot easier to put on. Yeah, this looks like shit, but hopefully from this distance you can't tell. I'm just wondering if I should take them off and put them on again. You know what, I will. Probably have people thinking I'm a crazy person, but you know what, let's just do it. Okay, now back to what I was saying. Series 7 had another genius lateral thinking move by none other than Rod Gilbert, who's sort of been a bit of a wild card throughout his series. He's also Welsh, so I really struggled to understand his accent, which is like side note, I kind of got a bit annoyed that they were making fun of Rose Matafeo's New Zealand accent when like Rod Gilbert doesn't even sound like he's speaking English half the time, but then again, you know, I suppose people in England are used to Welsh accents, but I'm certainly not. Anyway, so Rod, there was a task where they had to tie themselves up and Alex had to untie them, and whoever Alex took the longest to untie would win the task. So Rod comes up with an absolute genius move. It doesn't say anywhere on the task that they are not allowed to tie up Alex. So he actually ties Alex to a chair and then just loosely ties his wrists together. And, you know, the clock runs out. Alex is like, all right, it's time for me to untie you. And he's just like tied to this chair and he's like trying to jump the chair closer to Rod. But I mean, even if he got close enough to Rod to untie him, his arms are completely strapped down to the arms of this chair. And then, you know, they're there for a few minutes and Rod's like, oh, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. Would you like something to eat or drink, or, you know, do you want anything? And Alex is like, something sharp. But yeah, and then, you know, everyone in the studio is reacting to it. And I don't think Rod had a very good episode. I think a lot of people had sort of been, you know, putting him down a little bit, and he sort of like folds his arms and he goes, oh, I suppose you guys are gonna, you know, say that I was cheating or something, or how that wasn't how that was against the rules or something. And then before Greg can say anything, like the other contestants like, nah man, that was absolute genius. And Phil Wang's like, yeah man, we would love to shit on that, but we can't. But yeah, I agree, absolute genius. I never would have thought of that. I was also going to talk about what I would have done in some tasks, but I'm trying to think off the top of my head how I would do them. Like, for example, the very first one, eat as much watermelon. I would have just assumed that it would have been a whole watermelon that wasn't cut up, so I would have gone in with, you know, a knife and a spoon to cut up the watermelon and to eat it. Also in series 1, there was the pies. You had to work out the contents of the pies, but you weren't allowed to breach their pastry, but it didn't say you couldn't get Alex to help. So that's what, oh gosh, what was her name? Roisin Konate, I think that's how you say her name. If not, I'm sorry. And Tim Key, they both got Alex to help them. I never would have thought of that. I would have just thought by you, it doesn't just mean the contestant, it means you in general, like you all, I would have assumed. So I would have done exactly what Frank Skinner did. I would have picked them up and sniffed them and just assumed that they were all, you know, either a meat pie or a vegetarian pie. Okay, well these lashes are looking slightly better this time around, but still a disaster. Another thing I enjoyed about the show was that they did, this is how I discovered the show actually, because it was at the time a lot of countries were going into lockdown, Australia and UK included. I think our very first lockdowns were pretty much around the same time. And I discovered Taskmaster from something that was trending at the time on YouTube called home tasking. And basically it was created by Alex Horn and in part Greg Davies, who came up with tasks that people could do at home, and some of them were inspired by the show itself, others were unique to home tasking. For example, turn your bed into something that isn't a bed. That is a unique home task. But camouflage yourself is from series 4. And so they got people to do that. And yeah, and then I discovered this incredible TV show that's been around since 2015. I had no idea it even existed. I didn't compete in any of the home tasking. I should have. I sort of regret not doing it, because what they did was they got the best, because they would encourage people to film their attempts and then post to the Taskmaster Twitter page, which they then shared on. They compiled all the videos together, all their favorite videos, and put it on their YouTube channel. Hey, my cat's trying to say hello. Everything is a toy to this cat. I suppose it's my fault. I am reading my notes off of a notebook with a shiny tag on it, and anything that's shiny, she's just like a magnet to it. I don't know if this lip colour goes. It's very full on in my opinion. Maybe I'll put on a little bit more blush. She says that it's full on, goes to apply more blush anyway. Don't you love it when you're about to film your outro and your camera is full all of a sudden? But that's what I get for buying the cheapest memory card, I suppose. So yeah, this is the final look. It's a lot more dramatic than I thought it was going to be. The colours, the lashes, the lip colour as well. I thought the lip colour was going to be a little bit lighter than this. But I still kind of like it. It's very vampy. I think that's what we'll call it. The next time I do a video like this, I do have a very soft look in mind, and I might even show my foundation process in that one. So anyway, if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please put if you guys are fans of Taskmaster as well, I would love to hear your thoughts. And my cat has come to say hello. Say hello also. Hey? Alright, I'll let you go. She's getting hungry. It's almost tea time. Anyway, yeah, so as I was saying, if you're a fan of the show, please let me know who your favourite contestants are, what your favourite tasks are, just your favourite moments in general. I would love to hear them. And I'll be talking to you all again in my next video. Bye.